Hello and welcome to Magic Rabbits,
a podcast exploring the outermost edges of the music business that never was.
Celebrating the masses who never quite made Glastonbury, but had the best of times on the journey.
Here's to every one of us. We're on. Hey, welcome back to episode 2. Congratulations for making it this far. If you're still with us after our rambling introduction of who we are, and just reminds you, I'm Damian Scott, and this is Tim Riley.
Well, yeah, hi. And to be honest, the first one was quite self-indulgent, but then that's kind of how it's going to be. That's sort of
get used to it, everyone.
Get used to it. Yeah.
So last time we finished, the idea is we're going to try and base this very, very, very loosely around a song. Which you won't hear till right at the end. And we're not necessarily going to talk about that song per se. We're just going to use it as a little jumping off point. And last time it was one of mine, a song called The Newlyweds, which we hope you liked, which we re-recorded in a contemporary way. We just kind of revisited a song that we wrote like 20, 30 years ago and trying to freshen it up a little bit. And this week we're going to do one of Tim's songs. You'll hear that at the end. And it's a song called Can't See For Looking, which is like you wrote back in 1987.
Yeah, I think it was about 87-ish, or maybe a little bit later. It was after the band I was in called Everyman Jack split up, and your band split up, and we got together in a band called The Temple Men, which we discussed briefly last time. And yeah, it was obviously when you join a new band or start a new project, you try to make it a new beginning because clearly what you were doing didn't work. I know it sounds awful like it's like a failure, and we've got to do something about that. And you don't completely reinvent yourself necessarily, although some people do. But you at least try to go in a different direction. And this had an acoustic guitar in it, I think. Which was in itself at that time quite a departure for what I was doing. And it was a made up subject really, because it was about the breakup of a relationship, and the protagonist is basically just, the writer is just saying, I don't know what it is, it's called Can't See For Looking, and he just can't see what it is about his demeanour or his actions or his the way he is, which is creating such a such a balls up, and that was what it was about really. So
I remember I first heard this and you played it to me, and I was like, it was a moment where I thought, that's the band I want to be in. It was like this. It
really?
was just like, it was a pop song. Yeah. But it was a really cool pop song. It wasn't a pop song in that sort of way that you would kind of mock at the time, the sort of pop that other people liked. But it was like a serious pop song with a great melody and a great tune. It was exciting to play. Plus, the thing that really threw me as a sort of quite a naive songwriter was it wasn't in a standard sort of 4/4 time.
No, it's 3/4.
It was a kind of waltz time thing. I'm going
6/4. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows that stuff? And it was. Yeah, you can write a song with that lilting waltz time thing and sound really cool. And so immediately, again, we talked about this broadening your palette thing, and that did. It was like, gosh, you can write pop songs in different time signatures. Obviously, people do that all the time, and you don't. Oftentimes, you're not even aware of that. When maybe a lot of non-musicians don't even know that something is in a really bizarre time signature. I was just listening to Peter Gabriel's Salisbury Hill recently. I just woke up thinking about it the other day, and I played it, and it's just I don't even know what's 37/12 time or something, some stupid time, and you think it's amazing when people use those kind of things and make a different sound.
Yeah, obviously that song looms large in our lives a bit later, much later, with a different band, but yeah, I think I'm trying to think of what I was influenced by at the time. I think I'm one of these writers that isn't necessarily influenced by what they're listening to at the time. I really, really do. Because I think I was listening to Peter Gabriel, but it was his early albums. There wasn't anything acoustic on those, I don't think. I mean, I'd had a weird sort of trajectory when it comes to being influenced, because I was in the UK at the punk sort of time and the post-punk kind of time, living in Birmingham. And then I joined the army and I left the country and went to live in other countries, Germany in particular, where it was happening. It's not like it is today. Today something's released and it's released everywhere at the same time, but it sort of didn't happen like that then, and you would get things happening later in later territories. So I'd had all the stuff in the UK, even the ska stuff, and all that two-tone stuff, and then you go and live somewhere else, and it's all happening again. But it's happening again with a twist, a different twist,
And I think that one of the things that really attracted me to that song when I heard it, because I'd been listening to a particular song. You talked about the acoustic guitar thing, and the one album that I was loving at the time, and I've got a feeling this is probably more like 1984, 1985, you might know better, was Highland Hard Rain by Aztec Camera.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all acoustic. And places using like jazz chords and ninths and sevenths and all these amazing chords. And again, that was an eye-opener, that you could actually write great pop songs that sounded cool and almost post-punk. It had that post-punk attitude, whatever that is, a sort of unquantifiable thing to call something post-punk. Because you look at Roddy Frame from Aztec Camera, you'd hardly describe him as a punk at all. But yet it had some of that vitality.
I'll bet he was in a punk band.
He was probably in a punk band. And that I listened to that album to death. And then when you played Can't See for Looking, I was going, that's taking it to another place. That's even more energetic and vital. It's got that acoustic vibe and lilting, and it's playing with the different time signature that you would write a pop song in. And it was all that. So this is it. And it propels you into writing differently as well. And you go, right, I've got to write a better song. But I guess Lennon and McCartney were probably like that. Not that we're comparing ourselves for a moment in that respect, but that's what happened in that dynamic of like, oh, you've written that. Or I'm going to write something else. Then you've written Penny Lane. I'm going to write Strawberry Fields.
Paul Weller did it when I was a massive Jam fan, as I mentioned before. And then when he went into the Star Council or formed the Star Council, he started writing different stuff.
Completely different style, amazing.
Different,
but it takes you. The thing is, it takes you when musicians you love do that. It takes you with them.
Yeah.
You kind of go on that journey with them
if you love them,
and you suddenly find you've crossed this bridge to another style that you wouldn't have done without that. So it's I love those moments. I call those the slingshot moments where you kind of go on to propelled to another planet, another orbit because of something that happens. And that's and I think that was me joining, us joining together and forming a Temple Men did that. And I'd suddenly start writing stuff with, ninths in it and jazz which I've never ever have done. It's like, where's this coming from? And it's because you really, really have to learn differently and try differently. So
what I'm fascinated by as well is when this was happening to us, I mean, first of all, if we sort of look at the time that we've lived in, in the last, in the last, I don't know, 40 years of us being, active in music, really. When you look at that time, a lot's happened in music. A lot's happened. And the landscape of British music has gone just mad. It's just crazy. And it's been influenced a great deal as well, I think, these days, much more by outside influences than it ever was before. For example, bands like The Jam. I mean, who were they influenced by if it wasn't people like the Kinks, and the Stones and the Faces? These days, I think perhaps there's an awful lot of people who are being influenced by worldwide influences, American, lots of American stuff. And I think that my take is I've never really been influenced by anything outside of the UK. I don't know why. You could say that's narrow-minded in lots of ways. But I remember, once again, I'm going to refer to this quite a lot, but when I was teaching young people, young students, let's say they were into rap or hip-hop or things that were essentially influenced by other countries, other cultures in other countries. I would say things that they would find hard to understand. Like they couldn't understand why I thought it was odd that they were being influenced by that. And it's a little bit like if British kids are brought up here in the Lake District and they're being influenced by Eminem or they're being influenced by, P. Diddy or something, and their writing, it reflects that kind of stuff. It's a little bit like, can you imagine going, and I said this to them, and they thought it was funny, of course, but can you imagine going to, I don't know, South Central LA and being on a street corner there and there being a little Irish, a group of black guys doing some Irish folk tunes or something that's clearly influenced by, you'd think, what a weird thing. What an odd thing. How can culturally that have ever dovetailed? How does that work? You know. So when the young kids at college were writing stuff about drive-by shootings and stuff, I'm wondering what's going on. So my whole point is that all I could ever do was write about the stuff that affected me, you know. Whereas I do know that some of the best artwork, you know, takes from so many different viewpoints and cultures, and you know, some of the best stuff does. Let's be honest. To be so narrow-minded can sometimes constrain you to such a degree that it just becomes too parochial, you know.
Yeah, you've always had to think about that. We've always had conversations about this, about the cultural, repositioning and stuff. And I don't know where I stand on it, because I think I come from my first band, Side Effects. We were blatantly inspired by a band who was a white, you know, working class London band who were drawing very strongly from black kind of reggae specifically influences, you know. So the Clash we were kind of doing what you might call white reggae.
I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten the Side Effects did have a sort of reggae-ness to it.
We did, and to a point where you even start believing your own lie, and you'd almost be trying to wear it like a coat. This cultural, you know, identity, and we'd be going around making sure that we only drank in places where you could buy Red Stripe, and you know, and listening to Black Uhuru and Sly and Robbie on you know, and really trying to immerse yourselves in it. And there comes a point where you go, is this good? Is this cross fertilization? Is this an interesting thing? Some a lad from Manchester and another one from Preston and another one from Italy, as we were from in Side Effects at the time, listening to stuff from Jamaica. You know, what is that? Are we doing that on purpose? Are we trying to find an identity? Are we lost? But in the end, these things make something interesting, you know, and you inevitably bring your own stuff to it. You can't disguise who you are and your upbringing and your natural propensities and likes and dislikes, and you create something new, hopefully.
You know, I'm really hoping that if anybody's listening to this, well, I'm hoping that anyone at all is listening to this, obviously, but they can see their story in this, you know, that they can see their development. I'm sort of expecting nerdy music types to be listening to this, you know, and having been in bands that, you know, that were very much part of their youth, and perhaps they may have, you know, drifted away from, but they have a similar sort of, you know, beginnings, similar foundations, and all this stuff about where you get your influence. When you're in a young band, one of the first things you do is you all get together in the pub and start to talk about, first of all, what your name's going to be. Got to have a name, lads, got to have a name. And what your influences are, what you're going to look like, what kind of jeans you're going to wear, all this kind of crap. When really, just, you know, just like, perhaps that's just provincial bands. If you grow up in an urban environment, it doesn't really, none of that occurs to you. You just get on with it.
But I think so much of what you do at that age is about choice, purposeful decision making. Okay, I'm going to like that because I want to fit into a tribe. I want to be part of a tribe. When we're that age, we're all trying to work out who we are, what gang we want to be in, and you look around for clues. Like you mentioned the Jam, and obviously they were a big inspiration to you, but they weren't to me. Even though I was listening, they were around, and I was aware of them, and I could hear them, and I just made a decision to probably not buy their stuff for whatever reason. I don't even remember, because they're great. I love them. I mean, I can listen to the Jam now and go, "What a great band! What an influential band! What a really important band! An amazing musician, you know, Paul Weller, songwriter he is, and has continued to be." And for some reason, I made a choice to be into the Clash and not be slightly more, you know, the more aggressive kind
more
of
tribal
reggae.
as well.
So it's very tribal.
If you like that, you can't like that.
But you make those decisions because you can.
Yeah.
When I remember, I was torn quite a bit at school because like half of them, I went to school in Stockport, Manchester, and as you know, and my age group would be kind of the into rock, heavy rock, and they'd be going to see bands like Rainbow and Gillan and Judas Priest and those kind of bands, and we would live quite near to the Manchester Apollo. You could jump on the bus and go and see a gig at the Manchester Apollo, and and the other were kind of punks, you know. So we're talking like late 70s and early 80s. I left fifth form in 81. So, you kind of, I listened to both of those. Like, yes, I quite like a bit of that. I quite like that, but I've got to choose. I can't be both because that'd be ridiculous. I wouldn't be allowed to be both. I couldn't be the one that says, yeah, I like both. I'm gonna wear both of those badges on my blazer lapel. So I've got to choose: do I wear a Clash one or do I wear a Judas Priest one? and you have to make a choice, and it's ridiculous. And now when we're older, we can go, I don't have to make that choice now. I can listen to everything and anything, and I'll make a playlist of stuff that's completely varied. But there's something about that where you do have to decide and you choose. And I obviously made some choice to not listen to X, Y, and Z.
But I don't think it's like that now. I don't think that happens so much. In fact, I know it doesn't. I know that if you have an eclectic taste now, that's fine.
Well, even if you're 20 years old or
I think so,
17?
Yeah.
Or...
Well, once again, thinking back to when I was teaching, mind you, this is a long time ago now. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened since. But you didn't necessarily have to... I mean, when you came out of the staff room and walked into where the students used to congregate before we went in to teach, you could, if you looked at them and you'd taken it back 20 years or 30 years, everybody would have looked like the music they were into. This is a music course at the end of the day, right? So everybody would have looked like the band they love. It wasn't really like that. Everybody just looked like whatever they wanted to look like, very individual perhaps, and not like part of a tribe. Whereas they definitely did when I was when I first met you, I think you had a denim jacket on with Judge Dredd on the back of it.
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and
not one of the greatest musical inspirations of all time.
No, of course, but it was a statement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So and that's how we used to be.
Yeah.
We used to, whatever you wore, no matter what you were putting on every day, you knew that it had to make a statement about you, and it had to put you in a certain tribe.
And then coming back to, so in a cyclical way, coming back to the song, coming back to Can't See For Looking, coming back to the Temple Men, which was both our joint band, probably what you'd call our second bands in both our cases. I don't think we did that then. I think we'd either matured or we just leveled out and we went, this is now about music. It's about lots of eclectic tastes. Maybe we'd listened to such a lot of stuff by then that we'd started to go, we didn't have a meeting where we sat there and went, what we're going to wear. And we weren't too fussed about the name. It didn't have to be a particularly cool name. The Temple Men wasn't. It was just a very middle of the road sort of name. It wasn't a statement.
No idea.
We can't even remember. We're so old. We can't remember who came up with it and why they came up with it. But we just dressed. We just turned up to gigs dressed in what we would probably have gone to work in or just gone out for a walk in. So there was no decisions being taken there. And we just got up and played. So it come to a point where it was just literally about these, what we hoped were great songs, just great tunes.
It's worth remembering at this point that neither of those first two bands that we were in had any kind of active management. I mean, I know that we had people around us that were helping us. With the band that I was in before that, called Everyman Jack, it was Angela Lonsdale, she called herself now. She was called Angie Smith. We knew her as Angie Smith, and she worked at the Brewery Arts Centre in Kettle. And she was an actress. She's a great actress, and she did really well. And she was in Coronation Street. I think she played Curly Watts' wife.
A policewoman.
A policewoman, yeah. And she worked with Damian at the brewery. And she helped us out for a while. But then we split up as a band, so and I think you had, was it Gary and Wayne were sort of
we had people helping out, sort of roadies and and then photographers and people around you sort of helping out a little bit, but no manager per se. We didn't think it was cool to have a manager.
And when I talk about management, what I mean is, like they always used to say that every band, let's say a 4-piece band, have got a fifth member, that just doesn't, and that it's just another head to look at things a little bit more objectively and say, I think, have you thought about doing this or about this? should you really be wearing that jumper, or should whatever that kind of thing. It wasn't until later that we had that. So yeah, going your own way and doing what you wanted to do is all very well eclectic wise, and fantastic. We're just taking all these influences, they're going in, they're coming, we're regurgitating them in our own little way. But sometimes you do need focus. I do know that from later on in a different band, when I was talking to record companies, and when the conversations you're having with record companies often are about, they're asking you, what do you want? Who is directing you? Who's your manager? Can we meet your manager? Can we have a meet? And you're thinking, oh, shit, I don't know what I want really. A few quid. Big guitar. And we haven't got a manager, by the way.
Yeah.
So you're right. At that time, we didn't really have anybody. So we were just reinventing things.
Which was great. We just had fun doing that then. It was just about music and yeah. So going back to Can't See For Looking, what you said you wasn't... It's not
inspired
by anything particularly, but what stuff were you listening to that would have seeped into that?
I definitely think that Roddy Frame thing you were talking about. So that's definitely... And I think also Stephen Duffy.
Oh yeah, Stephen
Duffy, yeah.
Tintin Duffy.
Stephen Tintin Duffy.
The Lilac Time.
Yeah, he had those couple of singles in the sort of early 80s. And then by the time we got to then, he was starting to do stuff.
So his first hit was Kiss Me, wasn't it? That was his big hit.
Yeah,
was
Kiss Me. And another one.
Can't remember another one.
Yeah, it was another... It was very similar to that.
Yeah.
We'll have to think about it and put it on.
And he was initially in the precursor to what was Duran Duran, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
He was like the singer,
yeah,
and then got replaced by Simon Le Bon, and then went his own way. And always has been an incredible songwriter. We both love the Lilac Time, particularly that first Lilac Time album. Yeah. I remember, I think it was Pete Caddleback that introduced me to it. Pete Caddleback, we've mentioned previously, was in our third band, Boat Thief. And I think he introduced me to that first Lilac Time album, and it's just beautiful, almost folk-like English folk, but with a pop sensibility. And
that was
great tunes.
I mean, going back to influences, I think just as valid as being influenced by well-known artists is being influenced by the people around you, and in some ways, to me especially, I've found that to be the most powerful. And I was influenced by Peter.
Yeah,
I was definitely influenced by Peter. Peter isn't he would be the first to admit he was never the greatest guitarist, never the greatest musician.
So cruel.
But very no. We know that.
No, I know.
Okay, and he would say exactly the same. Never the greatest guitarist, but he had this wonderful naivety to his playing, and to his songwriting that made it so powerful. And he also knew that because he wasn't the greatest. I'm not saying he was a terrible guitarist, because he wasn't at all. He was a great guitarist, but he didn't actually. Stretch himself, and he didn't stretch the music in the songs to a degree where he'd find it difficult to play them, and he made them very simple, made everything very, very simple, and as such it had so much power, because when you're young you're trying to load as much in as you possibly can into all these things. Look how fantastic I am, look all these chords I've got in my song. And he was not like that. He would be extremely economical with what he was doing, and I found that really, really inspiring. And so once again, that this song, Can't See For Looking, will be directly attributed to his influence.
Okay,
I think
that's interesting. I mean, I'm the same. I was very inspired by Pete and the way he played. I'd never really quite met anyone. I mean, I'd probably listened to people similar to that, but never met anyone in real life who had that kind of sort of poetic, artistic sensibility. He really was like a troubadour kind of singer-songwriter who just completely wanted to write what he wanted to write and tune his guitar the way he wanted to tune his guitar and play and perform exactly how he wanted it, almost to his detriment in a way. I think you mentioned that before. He'd just stop in the middle of a set because someone wasn't listening enough, and he would just chastise them for not listening. And it would be just, but I kind of loved that too. And it was kind of just this proper, it was like I never see myself as an artist, but Pete was someone I would call an artist, in the sense that it was just a different It was a different way of approaching music. We're just like daft lads with guitars wanting to impress girls, right? I think that was our raison d'etre with it when it comes to anything to do with. I mean, we love music.
Still am, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we try, but he was something else. He was a different breed on another planet, and so you kind of did look to him and go, "I'd like a little bit of that." And he definitely affected the way I wrote lyrics.
Yeah, I know. We were both influenced by it. And also at that time, we would, because he would support us, he would do his little half an hour or something before we went on. And we often would talk about the fact that one day he's got to be the front man. We've got to have a band. He's got to be the front man of the band. And obviously it happened later on. But there was no doubt that he had something about him, something of the night about him.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Something of the night.
And there was something there that you couldn't hold. He was like mist, you know what I mean? He was not tangible. There was something about him. Now, this series of podcasts that we're doing, you know, we'll discuss lots of things in our past as well, and Peter will loom large in them, and his influence, and you know, various things to do with the next band that we're in afterwards. But yeah, there's no doubt that at that time I wanted to write things like that. And, you know, we'll play the song at the end.
And Pete, of course, was working part-time at the time. He wanted to be a sound engineer as well as a musician, but sound engineer was his kind of career choice. And he was good with that. You know, he was great at recording and producing. And he worked at a recording studio that we know very well called Linden Sounds, which is kind of up near a place called Shap on the A6, heading out the Lake District up towards kind of Carlisle way on that road, off in the wilds, this sort of farmland.
You get to the middle of nowhere and you go on a bit.
Yeah. And we know it well. We've spent a lot of time. I've spent time there with our first band. We've spent time there with Templemen, and I've spent time there with Pete doing boat thief stuff. And so
we would get some downtime for nothing or thereabouts, really.
Yeah. And what did we record there? What do you remember recording there?
Well, we recorded with this band. We recorded three things. One we called The Love, which was very Japan kind of.
Japan, there's another influence.
Absolutely.
See?
It was very David
Sylvian.
Very David Sylvian.
Wow.
Who actually, going back to influences for Can't See for Looking, David Sylvian looms large as well in there.
And I think one album in particular, I'd say that we both Secrets of the Beehive by David Sylvian. Fantastic. That inspired Pete, that inspired you, inspired me. Yeah. I mean, I still listen to that to this day.
Once again, simplicity and gaps.
Yeah. I can still put that album on. Yeah. I could get home tonight, put on, open a beer, sit there in a darkened room and just luxuriate in that album. So if you're listening to this and you've never, ever listened to Secrets of the Beehive by David Sylvian, it's timeless, it's beautiful, acoustic. It's incredible.
We recorded The Love, which is very David Sylvian influenced, and then we recorded Victoria's Change of Heart.
Best title of one of our songs ever.
Thank you. Yeah. The song was rubbish, but the title was fantastic.
I can't, we were just talking before, I can't actually remember it, although we must have played it countless times in numerous venues. I literally would not know how to approach that song. I can't remember the melody, the words or anything, but as a title, Victoria's Change of Heart is just one of those story titles that you love. You go, I want to hear that song. And maybe we'll resurrect that in a future episode, and we'll see if we can find that.
And we recorded a couple of other things, but I can't remember.
Well, they're both your songs. Tell me we did one of mine.
Probably. You know, just to keep you happy. But yeah. And it was around about that time as well that we did that. I mean, there's not many unsigned bands that can say, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in our career that that we're going to use this phrase, but not many unsigned bands can say that they did this following thing, which was play at the G-Mex.
G-Mex, which is a place in Manchester. It's now called something else. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, it's not called the G-Mex anymore. What's used to be Central Station by the Midland Hotel in Manchester. That sort of whalebone, curved, arched kind of old railway station. So then, when it was first opened, it was called the G-Mex. But now I think it's called something else.
The Budweiser Blitzkrieg or something.
No, I don't think it's called that. That'd be stupid.
I thought that'd be quite good.
But that should be the name of our podcast.
So we'd done a couple of sessions on the local BBC station, BBC Radio Cumbria, with a DJ called Kevin Fernyhough.
Yeah.
And his posse, which were great. It was a lovely sort of group of people, and we would go up there, and that was kind of a big thing. That was a big thing for us to do that.
Yeah,
I think
playing on the BBC.
Playing on the BBC up in Carlisle.
We just didn't add the Cumbria bit at the end.
Yeah.
Just say we're
BBC.
working for the
Just
BBC.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh,
BBC.
really?
Yeah. And so we sort of knew him, and then they were doing a BBC stand, this big exhibition down at the GMX, and they wanted some, and I think their band, whatever band they got sort of booked in, had given back word, and they couldn't do it. So they'd rung us at the last minute and said, "Can you do it tomorrow night or something? Can you come and do this thing at the GMX?" Yeah, we can. So we just got in the car and off we went.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was quite a weird one, because I don't remember anybody watching us at all when we played. It was broadcast live on the BBC.
It was live, yeah, it was broadcast live.
But I don't remember anybody being there actually to watch us. And perhaps it was just the crew, going, "Well, yeah, well done," as they do. And then I had a couple of beers and then came away again. It's very odd. But yeah, that was another moment that I thought, wouldn't it be great if somebody's listening to this? And I used to get that quite a lot. Whenever we did big sort of milestone things, I always thought, well, okay, I hope something, comes out of this.
Yeah, and nothing's ever quite what you think it's going to be. Like we had a song played by Steve Wright on his show on Radio 1.
That was later, yeah.
That was later. That was Boat Thief,
yeah.
And then we did a session on what was then BBC 5, Radio 5, now 5 Live.
Johnny Walker
show.
But that's
the late Johnny Walker.
We'll go through all this.
We'll go through that. That's just a little teaser.
Yeah.
You have to tune in to episode 37 to hear that.
Yes,
hear that anecdote.
If you want to find out what happened on Johnny Walker show.
Yeah, and
he's now sadly no longer with us.
No, but yeah, that was a whole saga, and yeah, so there'll be more to tell about that one. And I think we recently found the tape of that. Pete dug that out, and we heard a really bad, sort of poor quality, but someone taped it off the radio.
Yeah. Anyway, no more, Damian. No more. Zip it. We'll do that in a later podcast. Okay.
Let's not give it all away.
Yeah, the recording. Let's talk about recording a little bit, because at that time you would just do a few gigs in the pub and you'd get paid your 50 quid. You'd probably have a couple of beers each, and then you'd put the rest in a little pot and save it for recording. And generally, because it was the only studio anywhere close to us, anywhere near us, we would use
recording for a band that was trying to make, any provincial band or any band at all that was trying to make it, get known. Recording was the nirvana. Was it getting into a recording studio was the ultimate goal? Yes, playing local gigs in pubs, that was okay, but getting into a studio was like this, almost held this mythical kind of ideal. Everything was geared around when could we do our next session in a recording studio. So the first time we got into a recording studio, it was just like magical. You were like one of those, the days you remember, like passing your driving test, getting married, whatever, having children, getting into a recording studio, held that, and you almost went in as a kid in a sweet shop, just mesmerized by the technical array of things around and what was possible. It was like a magical place.
It was, yeah. I did actually feel the pressure.
Yeah,
I felt the pressure,
huge pressure.
When you're paying for it, and
by the hour,
the hour, and all it took was, if it took too long to get a snare sound or something, I would go nuts. I would just internally go crazy. I'd be thinking, what is going on here? We just want to capture the essence, don't we?
But I think you quite like recording. I notoriously hate it.
Yeah, you do.
I want to be playing live.
Yeah,
I think you and Pete enjoy the recording process.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you don't like going on and on and on and everything, but I would die on the inside if you asked me to play something twice. Just like, was that no good? Was that just, let's get out of here, let's get it down. But but you had to do it and you had to get it right. But it was so easy in a recording studio to go in, and because of the time constraints, you literally had booked it for a day. You put your hard-earned cash into this thing, and you knew you had 8 hours. in this recording studio, and you wanted to come away with 3 songs, that you had this thing that you could call a demo to take to, you know, record companies, and you could so easily end up doing it in a way that you didn't mean to do, and come out with something that you were deeply dissatisfied with, because you just go, that doesn't sound like us, because the engineer would just go get you in, just want to produce it the way they produced it.
Well, that's just it. In the early days, you haven't got a producer.
No.
You know, later on, you might have people that are sort of, you know, going, what I think you should do is this. Let's do it this way, you know. Let's scrap what we've just done and try it another way. Never get any of that in the early days. Yeah. And so you're under a massive amount of pressure. When Guy, the guy that owned the studio, used to look at us and go, okay, what are we doing then? What are we doing first? And you go, I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I don't know how you do this. You tell us how we do this.
Drums, is it first? I don't know. And you would sort of hope that he would go, what I think we should do is this. But that never really happened. And it doesn't really, at that level, all they really want to do is to get you in, get you out, get their money and go, and and that's nothing against Guy, because he's a fabulous fella, and he's a very professional fella, and he's worked for so many people. He worked for Phil Redmond down on the Brookside. And not Brookside, Hollyoaks establishment down in Liverpool. I met him down there once. But yeah, so yeah, and I think he's still got the Linden Studios now. I think they do extremely well.
But it's this kind of annoyance that no matter how hard you tried, you would never come out of a recording studio with a tape that actually sounded like you, or how you wanted to sound like, or the live version of yourself, and it was just through naivety and the fact you just were rushing something, and you would just do what the engineer was telling you to do, just so he could get in and get out quickly and get home for tea. And it was always dissatisfied until we got to, and we're fast forwarding to kind of Boat Thief, and we could talk about whether we're satisfied with that or not. The second Boat Thief album, which we recorded ourselves on our own equipment. Pete pretty much produced it. Well, we were all involved in it, but I think you'd say that Pete produced it. And we came out with something that we probably thought captured who we were. Or at least I thought it did. It captured the sort of sense of who Boat Thief were. That was the first time I thought, yeah, we've got something that feels like us. Anyway, we're fast forwarding to Boat Thief. We're jumping around historically all over the place here. But yeah, recording was such an interesting thing. Now we're sat in your recording studio in your own home, which is now the incredible thing is that you can, and I've had my own as well, you just can gather this stuff around you and do it, if not better probably, in terms of what you've got for so much less. You know, an Apple Mac and some software and a few bits and bobs, and you've got a recording studio, a nice microphone, and you get your music instruments in here, and everything's just plug in and play, and you can just sit and do it as long as it takes to do and get it right and experiment with it. And
that's definitely the beauty of having your own stuff, is that you haven't got to pay by the hour. You know, you're not on the clock. Because I suffer greatly from red light fever. You know, as soon as that red light is on, and I think it comes from those days. I honestly do. I think it comes from those days. You know, when you had to do it, you've got to turn it on. You know, and you might not be in the mood. You know, but you've got to do it because that's the day you've booked. And
I was never in the mood.
No,
that was something about recording studios. As soon as I walk through the door, it's like that creative thing just goes, that spark goes, and suddenly it's a deadened, kind of rehearsed, by rote kind of thing, and you're not capturing what music is to me, or it should be. Not saying that we didn't get great results and you couldn't do it, but I just wasn't someone who could sit on a chair and go, right, play that guitar part now, sing that, that lead vocal now.
I think when you record your songs in a studio, you're trying to get to two things, I think, generally, broadly speaking. One is what you originally thought it would be, the sound in your head when you wrote the song, and secondly, when you play it live, so you're hoping to get those an amalgam of those two things, the energy of your live performance of it, together with all the ideas encompassed in what you had to begin with. And I've never got that, ever. Even these days when I record, when I'm out listening to in my head to little demos that I've made, and then I'll come and do the recordings, they're never the same. Never the same. Okay, so I think we've got to the time now when we can just sort of thank everybody for listening for listening to this.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. If anybody actually is listening, it'd be fantastic. Anyway, that's us for now, and we'll play out with Can't See For Looking.
I can't see for looking, see the wood for the trees. Though I've looked high and low on my hands and my knees, and I wish that you'd tell me what it is that I've lost, 'cause I can't see for looking. Our union is ending and it cuts me in two, to see you turn away when I look at you. And you decline my invitation to give it one chance. Our union is ending. I'm practicing perfection, my motive unclear. It'll soften your defenses, I'm certain, my dear. And if that were to happen, I'm sure you'd agree. Oh, what am I saying? As a desperate attempt, I have pleaded with you to consider it further and start anew. But my rivers of persuasion are fast running dry, these rivers of persuasion. I'm practicing perfection, my motive unclear. It'll soften your defenses, I'm certain, my dear. And if that were to happen, I'm sure you'd agree. Oh, what am I saying? Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I can't see for looking, see the wood for the trees. Though I've looked high and low on my hands and my knees, and I wish that you'd tell me what it is that I've lost, 'cause I can't see for looking. Our union is ending and it cuts me in two, to see you turn away when I look at you. And you declined my invitation to give it one chance. Our union is ending. I'm practicing perfection, my motive unclear. It'll soften your defenses, I'm certain, my dear. And if that were to happen, I'm sure you'd agree. Oh, what am I saying? Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you could like and subscribe or even leave a review, that would be just brilliant. Anyway, see you again soon. Bye.